Time for everybody to feel old. So the SNES came out in North America in about 1991. And the NES, we didn't know this till a few minutes ago, came out in '83. Didn't know it was that long before the SNES. It's a true proper console development life cycle, even with the modern standards of 7 to 10 year launches. Today we're going to be looking at something that's been out on the market for a little while now, but we're going to tear down the SNES Classic and then look as well at the actual SNES Classic. And the purpose of this is really just, well, we did it with the PS1 Classic. It was kind of fun and interesting. And we would like to benchmark this SNES Classic versus the original SNES. So we're going to take it apart first and see what it looks like inside. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Evga Supernova G3 power supplies. Unlike other power supplies on the market that get easily tangled, the Evga G3 power supplies are modular and use sleeved cables, so the PCIe connectors won't get caught in your hair when building a system. The Supernova comes in several options, including popular 650 watt and 750 watt units, and is fully modular with a noise-focused fan profile. Learn more at the link in the description below. So these devices might be a bit of a flashback for you. This is my original SNES from a couple decades ago that I guess probably got it in the early 90s. It would be around when my dad bought it. So this is in pretty good shape. I mean, it's got a little bit of aging on it. We know that some of them have this yellowing effect to a much worse degree than others. And from what Patrick on the team was telling me, that we think that might have something to do with the flame retardant that they used and how it was mixed in with the paint. But there's some articles about this out there somewhere. This one has aged well, though. To go over the basics, if you haven't seen one in a while, we are, before taking them apart, first going to look at how true to form is the remake. And so it's got the slot, of course, power and reset, and these actually do move, just like that one moves. And this one clicks into place like that one does, which is pretty cool. Eject button, sadly, doesn't do anything here because it's the best one. It's spring tensioned over there. And then on the front, so you've got the pinout for the original controller right there. And then that is mimicked over here, but you pull these off, and then it reveals the actual, controller ports right there. And these are not USB, unfortunately. And the controller that comes with this device, its cable is about 3 feet long, so we bought extenders with it. But like I said, this has been out on the market for a little while now, so you probably know most of that stuff. On the bottom side, not much has really changed. The screw placement is different, though. So these two screws use a game bit head, and we have one of those bits in our iFixit toolkit, so we'll look at that later. And then this one, the screws are hidden under these feet, which is kind of standard for a small device. There are no screws hidden under here, as far as we're aware. Now, the backside I'm disappointed in with the remake, and that's because the original, if you never had a Super Nintendo, you missed out on this. The original had a hotline here, and if you called this number, so it's got Mario with a toolkit on it, and it says installation, maintenance, or service, Nintendo World Class Service Center hotline. So they've got that number. They also had a number in the manual for this, and it may be the same one, I don't know. That was a game help hotline. And I called it when I was playing Legend of the Seven Stars, and I was stuck on a very specific part of the game where you had to push, I don't know, I think it was Y and B to jump higher. I didn't know that you could use them in combination to jump higher. And so the game support people actually told me that. It was really impressive support, and of course that's now no longer a service. You use the internet for that. So disappointed to see that they didn't put a sticker there with a hotline number on it. But that's okay. They got the rest pretty accurately. The bottom, one more thing here that's different is the original SNES that I have has an Ext port on it. And the Ext port was supposed to be used for CD expansion, like a drive, CD drive expansion, or should have been used for a Stellaview, which was a Japan-only launch. And the Stellaview is mounted to the bottom of the SNES, boosted the height a bit, and it acted as a receiver and a decoder for, I think, satellite signal or something to that effect. And what it did was receive scrambled waves and then decode them into things like new age music. And you paid a service fee to two companies, to I guess the radio station, whatever it may have been, and to Nintendo for that. It did not come to the US. So that's what that was for, and there's not a fake port for that on here. But it's pretty close. And as far as the sizing, we did a quick measurement, a scale test earlier, and for sizing, this is about 10.8 centimeters across, and it's about 12.7, 12.8 centimeters the other direction. And this one is 19 and a half, maybe 19.6, and this one is like 23.2 or something. And so you do some scale math, you divide a few numbers, and the scaling factor of this versus this is actually almost exactly the same as this versus this. So they've kept the scale, it is to scale, or very close to it. It's within measurement error, because we didn't try that hard, but it's pretty much exact. And that's just cool to see, but not super important. So I guess we just start taking it apart at this point. The new one is straightforward. The old one I have to be careful with because it's old. And like it's already got a crack here, so that's going to be a bit fragile. And then this piece is probably going to come off, I'm thinking, in the process, unfortunately, because there's a crack there as well, but I'll probably just glue it back on later. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Decided we're going to go ahead and glue that now, actually, just to make sure. By the time I get to this device, it'll be dried. So we're going to use a Swiss Army knife with hopefully a toothpick in it, and I'm just going to super glue this. Nice. Didn't even need a knife. So yeah, it's just some adhesive on there, and I just stuck a fingernail under and pulled to try and avoid cutting or damaging the foam. It's in perfect condition. So that's pretty easy if you ever need to take that off for some reason. Yeah, you just kind of flex it till the adhesive gives. Cool. Okay, and then if we need more adhesive, we have plenty of that. All right, nice. First step is done. Those are standard Phillips head screws. And they are, let's see, what size are those? This size. This is a PH0. Size PH0 will fit perfectly. So 4 of those. Support.nintendo.com, it says. They've replaced the phone number with a website. Okay. So should just come apart. Yep, that was trivial. There's the inside of that. And I guess what we'll need to do in a bit here is take apart the original and see how close it is. But we have 2 cable clusters going in from the controller inputs. We have another ribbon cable here, and all that's doing is linking up to an LED, well, I don't know if there's an LED in there actually. I haven't turned it on yet. Looks like the LED is on the bottom half. So no LED there as far as, there is no LED there. So it's just linking up to the power and the reset buttons. So I think that's it. You can see a spring here for the, I'm guessing that's reset, yes. Spring for reset. So it's spring tensioned, has that original feel to it, which is pretty nice. And then this is just a toggle button. So that's all there is to that one. Is this a latch or is it just a pressure fit? Pressure fit. Everything about these cables is terrible. Okay, so pin side goes down for future reference for myself or for you. Pin side down. These are the same as you find in laptops, same as what they use in there. So bottom portion, we have a heat spreader. That's probably not all that necessary. And then 4 screws holding that down. Oh, 5 screws. Okay, so it's time to compare these. We want to compare these side by side as we go. Nice. I can clean that up later, but that is much more secured than it was before. So needs a little bit of a cleaning pass, but that chipped corner is now back on there, so we're good there. So this requires a special bit. The bit it requires comes out of this toolkit, which is a really awesome iFixit toolkit. I will link it below if you're interested in it. So it's this one. It's a game bit. That's a 4.5 millimeter. Let's see if that'll fit. That will fit. 4.5 millimeter game bit is what we're using here. Set this giant toolkit aside. And nice, it reaches too. Okay. Have not taken this apart before. So this has been assembled since the 90s when it was purchased. And I'm 99% sure there's no active cooling. So that means there shouldn't really be any dust accumulation. That's a benefit of a closed box that doesn't need to breathe. But I can still take the opportunity to clean it out. Let's get a close-up on this screw so everyone can see what a game bit is. There's what it looks like. Almost looks like a gear. I'm going to take these out at opposing corners. Good news is it's going to be basically impossible to strip these. You have to really crank them to do that. All right, cool. Cool, so there's 4 of those. And then there are 2 more. So there are 6 of those. Was there already, I didn't take a screw out of there, did I? I don't think so. That looks like it had a screw in it at some point because it's moving a little bit. Oh, all right, well, easy enough, separates instantly. Oh, okay, cool, nice. Perfect, that makes it easy. Okay, so now we can have our side-by-side. This is pretty cool, by the way. We have another video on the channel with this. Superboy SFC portable SNES thing. All right, now, internally, to be fair, there's not much reason Nintendo would be like, we have to make sure it's faithful to the way the inside of the console was. Because the whole point is that it's not the same thing, and it's easier to use in the digital era with modern TVs and things like that, or monitors. But let's look at it anyway. This explains now why I love that button so much, that reset button. Look at that. This thing is huge. Or the eject button. I mean, that's the eject button. It makes sense, though. It's a big lever, and it has to pop the cartridge out. So, I mean, you've got a cartridge that sits in here like so, and you need something to kick it back out. So, or right here, actually, is where it goes. So, makes sense that you'd have a big lever capable of pushing it without having the plastic feet break, and cue the trope of they don't build them like they used to. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's obviously it doesn't look the same, and we need to look at the actual components just to kind of talk about differences in processing technology. So let's get this this heat spreader off. Actually, we can do that without removing the cables. No screws holding the heat spreader on. Nice. There's a thermal pad that's got the, this is always cool to see, thermal pad that has the branding of the chip it was on top of in it. You can see that it says R16, which is what the SMD says as well, but that's just from being imprinted. So, good to go there. Let me try and safely pull these out if I can. Actually, there's not really any point to doing that, is there? There's no point doing that because it's already, we've already revealed everything there is, so we'll leave those in actually. So for components, the one that was under the heat sink was that R16 one. All Winner Tech, R16, let's look these up. The all-winner, I'm going to read from the data sheet here. This is from the official data sheet for this processor. So it's a quad-core CPU. Just put that out there first. And it says, the all-winner R16 is designed to provide a scalable, well, in context, it says, the all-winner R16 is designed to provide a scalability, low-power capabilities, high-performance application processor solution for Internet of Things applications, which outperforms competitors in the terms of its system performance, great flexibility, and energy efficiency. The processor perfectly supports various applications in mainstream operating systems such as Android, Linux, etc. And to get down to the heart of this, it is an ARM Cortex CPU at its core, and it's an ARM Cortex A7. It uses a Mali 400 MP2 graphics architecture. Maximally, the video engine is capable of 1080p video playback or encode decode, and it supports MPEG 1 and 2, WMV 9, VC1, H.264, VP8, and JPEG and MPEG encoding. Built to be power efficient and low power consuming. So this is, I mean, it's an ARM processor. It's sufficient for playing the games it's going to be playing, but we'll benchmark it later and look at the actual frame time consistency. That's what we're really interested in. The next chip we're going to look at is this one. Now, if you're wondering who makes this chip, it's Nanya Business. That company, Nanya, is the only other noteworthy memory manufacturer outside of the triumvirate of Samsung, Hynix, and Micron. So Samsung, Hynix, and Micron have jointly over 90% market share, or very close to it, and Nanya's in there with a little bit extra. They make some of the caching memory on SSDs these days, but let's look up this specific part and see what this one is. So the chip is the, of course, very well-known Nanya NT5CC12AM16IP-DI. Here we go. So the data sheet for this one says it has a density of 2 gigabits. That's bits, lowercase b, 8 bits in a byte. So 2 gigabit density, and it is a configuration of by 16. It's got 1.35 voltage for the spec. So 1.35 volts going through it. BGA package, which is already obvious, has a 96 BGA count, and then speed is 1600 megabits per second, which is pretty good for this. It's 13 by 8, and it has a 0.8 maximum height in millimeters. I think that covers everything we really need to know about this. So there's your memory. As for the rest, there's an AXP, let's look this one up too, AXP223. Looks like it's a power management chip, IC, so power IC. And then this device, service mount device, is the MXIC, Macronix MX30LF4G18AC-TI, and DigiKey has this one for sale if you wanted to buy one yourself. They've got 1,300 of them, and you can get, let's see, a unit price. It's $9.49 for one, which is actually extremely expensive, but that's because it's one. If you buy them in thousands, which is what Nintendo did, then it'd obviously be cheaper. And memory size is listed on DigiKey as being 4 gigabit or 512 megabytes by 8. And it's non-volatile flash storage. It is SLC. That's kind of cool. And access time 20 nanoseconds. I think that's about all we really need to know. So there you go. That's what you have for writable memory, and then RAM, and then the processor, and then power management chip right there. And there's nothing on the bottom side, I don't think. What is that? That's worth looking at as well. Dang, I need to wear these on my face everywhere. This is cool. EP952. Low power HDMI transmitter. Low power HDMI transmitter for that right there. So that just handles the video out. Okay, well, that's about the entirety of this, of the SNES Classic. And then it's got a single thermal pad, pretty thick one at that, which isn't necessarily a good thing, sitting on top of the core, the CPU, with a, well, sort of heat spreader on top of it. But it's not really doing much in terms of power output, so we don't really have to worry about the heat. The rest of this thing, well, we might as well see if we can look at some of this stuff. These are actually branded as Nintendo parts, some of these. Oh, it's got Sony on it. So they still bought from Sony, I guess, despite burning them. 1989, that's when this, so this, this device right here, that chip module, 1989, and that's quite a lead time on integration. The CPU was, oh man, here you go, this is kind of cool. The CPU on this thing was actually let's just reveal it first if we can. That's gonna be, I don't really necessarily want to do this, but let's just take it apart. Does this have to come off to get the rest of it out? Oh, okay. Oh, what a pain. All right, so the through rod comes out. Then the spring goes on top of it, like that. Okay, got it. Let's start with what this isn't going to come off till last. We have to get the rest of the board out first. There's your power on and power off. That's a satisfying switch. Okay, so what's the best approach? That is secured over there, underneath, and over here. Wow, that's some solder job, Jesus. A mess. So be careful with that button. I think now this can come off. I'll put these in the order I'm taking them out. One there. There. Okay, so this just mounts. These hooks go in front of the cart reader. So they go into those sockets down there. Maybe I'll blast this out with an air compressor before I reassemble it. And that reveals a lot of the modules on here. So S-SMP, as I understand it, feel free to correct me on these if you've done more research, but from what I saw online, that looks like a sound processor of some kind. What are the rest of these? The CPU is a Rico 5A22, and it is 3.58 megahertz, which is about the difference you'd get now if you change base clock to 100.01 or something on a modern CPU. Just to give you perspective, 16-bit design incorporates graphics and sound coprocessors that perform tiling and simulated 3D effects, a palette of 32,768 colors, and 8-channel 80 PCM audio. This is all Wikipedia. These base platform features, plus the ability to dramatically extend them all through substantial chip upgrades inside of each cartridge, represent a leap over the 8-bit NES generation. So that's from Wikipedia. As for the rest, CPU processor, Rico 5A22, based on a 16-bit 65CU 816 core. Clock rates for NTSC, 21.47 megahertz. Buses, 24 and 8-bit address buses, 8-bit data bus. Oh, that's interesting. So in NTSC regions, the nominal clock speed of the processor is 3.58 megahertz, but the CPU slows down to either 2.68 or 1.79 when accessing some slower peripherals. Supports 8-bit or 8-channel DMA, direct memory access. And for memory, it has 128 kilobytes of general purpose RAM, not kilobytes, kilobytes. So as opposed to the normal multiple, it's 2 to the 10th, so 1024 bytes is what you're dealing with for that. And then just for fun, resolutions supported include 256 by 224 progressive, 512 by 224, 256 by 239, 512 by 239, and interlaced 512 by 448 or 512 by 478. The rest of the chips. I think we've pretty much gone over everything. There you go. S CPU right there. There's your S-CPU. Couple capacitors under this thing right here. Nothing worth pulling the whole rest of it apart over. So there's the inside of the old SNES and the inside of the new SNES. We've also got these parts here, which, I mean, is a bit boring, isn't it? Because it doesn't really do anything. This has some mechanical elements to it, but not a whole lot. And a whole hell of a lot of screws and plastic holding it all together. I have a feeling they'd build this a bit better now, but pretty good for the time because it's held up a very long time. And it's all ABS plastic. They've even numbered the parts. They've got 22, 23, and so forth. Now, one last thing to look at is going to be the controllers. And this is where I am not going to take apart the old controller because, well, I don't know. I guess I could, but I don't really feel like dealing with cleaning it. So here's what we're going to show you, though. This is kind of cool. Now, the feel is the one thing we can't convey to you. The feel is very genuine to the original. I mean, it's damn close. And the only differences are really just because this has been used and it's probably pretty aged. But not only the feel being roughly the same, looks pretty damn close too. There's a bit of discoloration here on this. I don't know if it was originally this off purple or if it's just aged on the original, whereas the new one is that gray color. But if you look down at every small detail, including this notch, this assembly notch right here, you can see that that exists also on the old one. And then if we look around the edge of the controllers as well, every single mounting point or injection point, it all looks pretty much the same. So you stack them on top of each other, they're identical. It looks like Nintendo took the mold from the original and reapplied it, which is what we saw with PlayStation's PS1 Classic controller as well. Really faithful representation, if not functionally identical. And if you have any doubts about it, we can measure some of this out. Let's do the distance between the buttons. That's pretty noticeable if they're different. Let's do center to center. Center to center, 16.8. Center to center, 16.8. So, I mean, center to center here is the same. That's cool. Also 16.8, it's squared. Also 16.8. 38.86. 38.86. So, I mean, it's a perfect representation, probably like the same mold or at least remade the mold for it. So really cool to see that. Screw placement's the same as well. The only difference is now you've got some modern standardization and certification text at the bottom or on the back. And we're missing what I'm assuming is an injection point on the bottom center. But the controller itself is basically completely the same. That's it for the teardown of the SNES Classic. So it's not a new thing. We know it's been out for like a year. But we're just getting into some console benchmarking stuff. We built all that software and used it on the PS1 Classic. And we thought, it might be kind of fun just to go back with this thing and kind of dial our tools, figure out what we're doing with console benchmarking, and then apply them to newer things going forward. So yeah, that's it for this one. You can subscribe for more as always. You go to patreon.com/gamersnexus, helps out directly, or store.gamersnexus.net to pick up a shirt like this one or one of the mod mats I was working on. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time.